Well, hello, I'm Jeff Baumgartner, a senior editor at Light Reading, and your host for this episode of Signal Strength, a podcast for Light Reading focused on all things broadband, connectivity, and video, and the technologies and policies that are driving them all forward. And in this episode, I caught up with Lou Borrelli, the CEO of the National Content and Technology Cooperative, or NCTC, and Grant Spellmeyer, the CEO of ACA Connects. And we got together to do a preview of the independent show, which is going to be running July 26th through the 29th at Disney's Yacht and Beach Club Resort in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. And since this is co-hosted by both NCTC and ACA, the show is going to, of course, cover some of the top technology, programming, and policy issues impacting their respective members. NCTC, of course, puts together technology and programming deals for its members, which is made up of hundreds of independent cable operators and some telcos. And ACA Connects helps a lot of those same members navigate all the big policy issues. So here on the podcast, we talked about what will likely be talked about at the independent show, including an update on the NCTC's mobile program, an update on its AI Center of Excellence, and then a number of policy issues, including the FCC's relatively recent ban on new foreign-made routers and how this part of the market is navigating it. So with that as our backdrop, let's get into it. Well, hey, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you being able to take some time to chat with me today. Lou and Grant.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, glad to be back with you, Jeff.
All right. So today we're speaking, I think it's couple of weeks ahead or so of this year's independent show, which is set for July 26th through 29 at Disney's Yacht and Beach Club Resort in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. So today this will kind of serve as a bit of a preview of the show and some of the tech and policy and content angles that we might see at the show. And, I'm looking forward to moderating a couple of interesting sessions there, talk about some industry trends, maybe zero in on what's going on in mobile. But I did have a chance to look through the agenda, and it's clear that mobile AI convergence are among the big topics that we're going to be covering or learning about at this year's TIS. So maybe just to begin, just have each of you just take a moment to break down what you see as the big themes and maybe the likely takeaways from the show, even though the show hasn't happened yet, but the takeaways before we even get there. So who wants to start?
So I'll start. I mean, the tagline, imagination meets innovation, I think is really what we're trying to achieve. We've got, as you mentioned, there are a number of issues that our members are having to deal with in terms of, conversion and all the things that they're hitting with on a competitive basis. It's funny. People's like, well, what are you going to talk about? I said, well, it's what everybody else is talking about. Just because we're small and independent doesn't mean we don't have the same challenges that the bigger companies that are much more well-financed and entrenched have. I think that, as always, our job on the NCTC side of the house is to develop and curate solutions that address the problems that our members are telling us they need help with. And so we've got, obviously, our mobile program is underway. We've got our AI Center of Excellence that has been approved to go forward. So we're very happy about that. Broadband TV is in market. And, we have a whole bunch of solutions. And I think what we're trying to do is make sure that our members are aware of all those solutions and how they can use them to enhance their business, to create more competitive nature, and to be, better suppliers, better providers to their customers. And then Grant makes sure we all stay out of jail through the,
That's right.
the legislative side of the house.
Yeah, everybody's following the policies. Yeah. So from your side, what do you kind of think is going to be the big focus? Yeah.
Actually was reflecting as Lou was starting to talk. His job's harder because the topics that he has to cover and the solutions that he has to deliver for our members, evolves over the years. In some respects, my job is much more straightforward of keeping Washington out of the way of our members accomplishing what they need to accomplish. And in some respects, it's the same story over again. We're focused on broadband deployment and, using all the tools that Lou and his team are able to deploy. From my perspective, administrations come and go, but there is a common uh, uh, issue overhanging in Washington, D.C. about keeping things streamlined to the maximum extent possible so our members can get out and deliver the services that policymakers want to see delivered to consumers. So you're going to hear us, there'll be some, flavor of convergence, AI, and mobile, but a lot of it is the same stuff about light touch regulatory approach, uh, uh, permitting challenges remain the number one thing that my members struggle with, and we're continuing to try to clear those away. There's related bead implementation stuff, and I think the message that I want our members to come away with is that ACA and NCTC are here to help, and that we will continue our 40-year history of delivering good results in Washington and in the marketplace.
All right. And is there anything really new and different about this year's show that you're going to have there, or is it kind of, yeah, we're going to kind of stick to our knitting, on a lot of this stuff and really focus on the solutions and kind of the updates, kind of what's on the regulatory horizon, I guess.
So the formula for the show has been pretty well set. We start the day before with a full day of the Marketing Innovators Group. We've probably got 65, 70 marketers from our member companies in all day. They've got workshops and keynotes. So it's a lot of AI, but it's also a lot of go-to-market planning, et cetera. We have a number of great keynotes for the start of the show with Noel Russell from the AI Leadership Institute. And then, Grant was able to secure Olivia Trusty from the commission, and he stole my old board member, Jim Holanda from Cable One. I think those are going to be two very interesting conversations. I'm really interested to hear what Jim has to say now that he can't say he's really the new guy anymore. He's been there enough. We have David and Jonah Stillman, who it's a father and son duo. And if you've paid attention to our good friend, Evan Shapiro, he talks about not making decisions in a boardroom or in a meeting if you don't have anybody in the meeting that's under 35, because they're the ones that actually know what the future is. And so we think we'll get a good kind of give and take there. And then last, certainly not least, Jimmy Zawalski from ESPN. We're going to talk about ESPN Unlimited and other streaming services. We'll talk about where sports is headed. And, I do think, look, we've all, for those of us who've been doing this a long time, we've all sort of mumbled and grumbled about, the amount of money we pay programmers and everything else. And obviously Disney, ESPN gets paid a good chunk of money, but they also have delivered a lot of value with the content that they've secured. And making ESPN Unlimited available at no cost to our members who are programming members who already get ESPN is a huge value. And, we've already started onboarding. We've probably got 140, 150 members onboarded.
So that's been agreed to? Yeah. So that's
part of the deal.
Okay.
Oh yeah. No, that was always their intent. And I think that, we, as I've said in previous, discussions with you, we've been fortunate in that we've secured all the rights that everybody else has, meaning Charter, Comcast, et cetera. Now, we don't pay the same rates, but the gaps aren't that big. They're not like they used to be. So the gap differential isn't there. But we have the ability to offer these services to our members so that they can offer them to our customers. And it's a big value. I mean, there's some logistical challenges. It's taken a while to get onboarded, but they were very concerned about security and about, the viability of the platform, et cetera. But, I think we have a lot to talk about. It's sort of like taking the themes of the last couple of years. We're now bringing them to fruition. And hopefully our members who are not participating or engaged to that level will look around and go, oh, that guy on stage, his company's the same size of mine and he's going ahead and done this. You know what I'm saying? It's more about peers. I mean, people love to listen to Grant and I joke around on stage, but they didn't come there for that. They come because networking is the number one response on every post-show research. They want to network with their peers. They want to hear what people are doing. They want to have frank conversations, and they don't always have to be on stage. So, for the independent show, it's the ultimate, family reunion, if it will, right?
Peer pressure, but in a good way,
Yes, absolutely.
There you go. All right. Well, one thing, and maybe there'll be some news coming out at the show, but, we've been following, Lou, your NCTC, the agreement on the mobile side of the program, right? You have a couple of different options on the MVNE side with Reach and most recently Telgu 5. And, we've been kind of following launches and plans to deploy and all those things. And I realize you don't announce things on behalf of your members, but I just wanted to kind of maybe get a general sense, in terms of interest and activity right now. Are you seeing an increase on that?
Absolutely. The interest is high. We've got so just to break it up into two pieces, as you know, we've had Reach as a partner for the better part of a year and a half or more. Telgu 5 was announced and added earlier this year. We are midway through the AT&T integration with Telgu 5, and we expect to have members launched on that platform by the end of summer. I think it could bleed into September, but I think we're on a good track there. And this really makes our mobile program look like, frankly, all of our other programs, because all of our other programs usually have more than one choice. And so adding Telgu 5 was a way for us to expand the choice for our members. Everybody has their I'm trying to think of the right word, their nuance for what makes them decide one over the other. I'm not in the job of picking winners. I'm in the job of creating choice. And so adding Telgu adds more choice. It creates more demand. And they've been very well received to our membership. So, I think you're right. I don't talk about our members unless they've already issued a release on their own. But I can tell you that the number of members that are either in the market or in the pipeline to launch is up to about 75, 80 members that are going through the process. We probably have, I think we've announced, on the Reach side, probably 12 to 15 are already in. There are others that are looking at it. They're looking at both. But at this point, it's more about member choice. AT&T is still our network partner. We have created very competitive plans. Our retail rates are as low as anybody in the business. We've been a little slow in the device and an accessory market, but we've now introduced that. We've got device insurance and finance. So, we're going to look and act and sound like everybody else. But I think the key differential is for most of our members who are small to medium sized, this is a big step. and they're taking their time to make sure they understand how it impacts them technically, operationally, customer service wise. What are the right ways to go to market? These are things that, a larger company would have separate teams that only focus on. So we understand that it's taking a little bit longer, but those that have taken the time and really thought it through and have gone to market with the right approach have seen good results. So it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I think we'll have a good number of members by the end of this year in mobile. And, we look forward to seeing them grow.
All right. Well, I think the whole mobile angle here kind of feeds into, the bigger convergence topic, that we're going to be talking about at the show. And maybe I just ask you guys both, how do you define convergence these days, either from, Grant, your side of it, Lou, your side of it? I mean, at this point, what we've seen, it's really more about bundles and discounts of home broadband and mobile. As this part of it, I mean, it'll evolve to become a little more tightly integrated on services and systems and everything. But, kind of heading into the show, what does convergence kind of mean right now?
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah,
I've been talking too much.
Well, so to me, it's about broadband, and it's about broadband delivery to customers, and
it's like connectivity above all, right?
Yeah, kind of. Okay, yeah. Actually, that's probably an even better word: is connectivity of broadband and voice that rides over the broadband. And there's a mobile component, and there's a fiber component, and there's an HFC component, and a copper component, and a satellite component, and a fixed wireless component, and all of that, I guess, drives into competition as well. But that's really what it comes down to. I think more and more there's a consensus that you need, at least depending upon your geography, multiple delivery paths to get to customers with connectivity. And in the most remote parts of the country, there's limited connectivity. And in the more suburban parts, there's a plethora of it. And so that's what's driving policymakers in Washington. And hence, that's what I'm paying attention to.
Yeah. And Lou, I guess, from your side of it, do you think it's really about the bundle at its core and being able to provide a discount? Because it feels like it's becoming table stakes, to have a convergence play right now, because a lot of everybody else is going to have it as well. Yeah.
Well, so first of all, and I always say this whenever we have this conversation, I give a lot of flowers to Comcast and Charter for proving that you can actually buy really good phone service from a cable provider, from your broadband provider. So they've plowed the road for us. I think the phrase that I use is it provides continuity of connectivity. Okay, because in the old days when video was the only product and we had a huge market share, there was a reason for that, and it was because it was economically challenging for anyone at that point in time, given technology, given capital spend, given finance, et cetera, to overbuild another cable operator. And we had a handful of those, and I was overbuilt a few times, and I understand what that is. But today, given the technology advances, given the market conditions, including Wall Street, et cetera, an incredible amount of money is being invested in multiple ways for people to buy connectivity. And I think as an incumbent, if you think about most of our members were the first providers in their markets, and they had, no competition. Well, now there's 2, 3, 4 providers. Even in small markets, there's multiple providers. And so you have to ask yourself, well, what business am I in today? Because it's not the business I was in 30, 40, or 50 years ago. So it's all about connectivity and then developing products, solutions, services that are maximize the value of that connectivity. In my view, broadband is sort of the entry to all these other things. Yes, we still do a very good linear programming business. We are probably the number 4, number 5 in terms of size of video, the video universe. And that's still very important to us. And we have great partners that support our members in that. But we're also looking at mobile. We're also looking at over-the-top video as a value add to broadband, not necessarily to sell it individually. And with the AI Center of Excellence, we're creating this sandbox approach where members don't have to put up millions of dollars to stand up a stack to do what they want to do. We create a vetted environment where we've vetted the providers, we've vetted the use and business cases, and then members can opt in on almost like a subscription basis to take advantage of that. That's the business we're in today, is trying to help our members solve the problems that pop up just around every corner, because that's what advancing technology forces you to do. It's both disruptive, but it's also, it sounds revolutionary, but I still think it's evolutionary. I think that we're making way. We're never going to be first. We're always going to be fast followers. And I think that it puts us in a very good position, and our members in a very good position to be competitive and to still provide excellent service to their communities, because as the local provider, that's their superpower. They're local. Everybody knows them. They know everybody. And that's what you need. You need to look your neighbors in the face and say, I can offer you the same type of solutions that your cousin in Minneapolis or your aunt and uncle in Miami get. That's the business we're in.
Right. And we're going to hit on a couple of those here in a little bit, but real quick on the policy side, Grant, you had mentioned some of the hot topics, and streamlining is a big one. And I think last year around, maybe it was this time, the upper C-band auction, we knew it was coming, and you're like, okay, we got to brace for this. And we went through all the filings, and everyone filed their concerns and everything. And now we've got the rulemaking, or at least the vote on the rules for the upper C-band auction for next year is coming up. What was your reaction to the rules? Were there any issues or surprises there? Or do you feel that your constituents are going to get the technical and financial support that they need, when the auction happens and the band gets cleared?
Yeah, so you're right. A year ago, we were talking about kind of the broad framework, which had been set by Congress in legislation, and they determined that we were going to proceed with this, and now it's in the hands of the FCC to come up with the implementation rules. I think we are still talking to our members about some portions of the rules, and there's some stuff to still be determined in terms of timelines for the actual shift off of the C-band post-auction. A lot of what they just voted on at the FCC was related to the conduct of the auction itself. I would say we were pleasantly surprised. The FCC recognizes that there's an important interest in making sure that the transition that comes is smooth, and that doesn't adversely impact customers who, well, not customers, my members who rely upon C-band services to provide video to end user customers. So there's still some things to be figured out as to how fast and exact cost reimbursement details, and you'll continue to hear me talk about the C-band, but I think on balance the FCC did a pretty good job.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to see about the timing. Yeah, because I know
Yeah,
they want to
there's
make it
I think
pretty
there's
accelerated. Yeah.
I think there's a debate about whether everybody's supposed to be off the band by the end of 2030, or is it
Yeah.
2029 or 2031 or 2032? And we obviously want to make sure that it's a balancing act, just like it was the last time.
Right. And to make sure that you get a like for like alternative. Right.
Alternative.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked about broadband connectivity, but just quickly on competition, even on the policy end, I mean, there's a lot of activity with satellite broadband and clearing, requests to deploy tens of thousands of more of these things. And we have Starlink out there. Amazon Leo is inching toward a commercial launch, and they both have positions in the BEAD program. And I think some of it can be viewed as directly competitive, particularly in the rural areas. But we've also seen companies like GCI, team up to fill some coverage gaps, right? So kind of this competition, also complementary. But how do you and your members really view satellite broadband today? I mean, is it an existential threat, or TBD, or are there more partnerships that could be formed out of this?
I tend to view them as frenemies at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I think
Grant agrees. Yeah.
That was going to be my phrase, Lou. We're thinking alike.
Yeah, it is because right now, if we're all being brutally honest, does anybody think $7,500 a passing for BEAD money is a good idea? Like, I get it. People got approved for it, but come on now. So does Starlink have a place? Of course. Does fixed wireless have a place? Sure. We've got members that use both. But the point is it a solution that is a long-term solution, or is it something that you can use as you're building toward that area? And I may not be popular for saying this, but if I still owned a cable company and I had a whole bunch of houses outside of town that it was going to take me 6 months to a year to get to, but I could offer them, a deal on Starlink to hold their place in line before we get out there. Now, assuming I could get a Starlink deal done, I'd probably do it. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's a long-term play, because I do think a connected fiber connection to the home is far more, far better from a performance standpoint. But it works. And I'd say, learn from it, because, if you see people that are willing to pay the kind of money that they're paying for that kind of service, which is still, it's still emerging. I mean, in order for them to be very competitive or to be a direct competitor, they're going to have to launch a ton more satellites, and that's going to take a ton more money. And then it's the, what is their ultimate capacity, right? Because that is really what's driving the question. Are they competitors, yes or no? If they can't get enough satellites in to consistently have good coverage across all areas, then they're not going to be directly competitive. They'll be complementary.
Yeah.
But you got to pay attention. They got more money than anybody I know.
I think from a policy perspective, the thing that Washington needs to be concerned about is, for lack of a better word, a monopoly threat that exists out here. Consumers should have choices of delivery mechanisms and choices of providers. And if one household wants fiber, they ought to have the ability, or needs fiber for whatever reason, that America would be better off with multiple delivery mechanisms in place. If we simply believe the story that it's all going to come down from the satellite owned by the richest man in the world, or the second richest man in the world along with him, you're setting yourself up for a scenario where, I guess you don't need mobile anymore. We can just we'll shut down the mobile networks. We'll shut down the fiber networks.
I
We'll
think they'll all
all
be
just,
complementary.
we'll all just rely on, what is hopefully a reasonably priced service that doesn't get overloaded, doesn't get blown out of the sky by the Chinese, or melt down in some sort of space junk situation. And that's not to say that I don't believe in that they're there, they're viable, and they're a competitor, but we got to keep an eye on some of those things, or pretty soon you end up in a
Yeah.
situation where, if your only choice is, you look at Starlink pricing today, and it's all over the place, depending upon what market they're in and how many competitors they face. And
Well, and how
it
much
may be
capacity
it
they
may
have in a
it,
particular area. Yeah.
if you're on a loose boat in the middle of the Caribbean, you only got one choice of a provider, and it's $150 a month. And if you're in suburban Milwaukee, you can get it for 50, and there's a reason for that. And we got to guard against all those things.
Hey Lou, do you have for your boat? Do you have a Starlink on there,
I do.
are you
I have a Starlink Mini.
okay?
It works very well in the open water and when I'm on the dock or on a mooring. And like I said, for years I was relying on my cell phone coverage because as you know, I do work from the boat from time to time during the summer,
Yeah,
and it just didn't work as well.
it probably
And
wasn't
so
consistent enough, right?
yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
consistent. So,
Hmm.
look, I got an iPad. I've got a Starlink Mini. It's smaller than an iPad. It sticks on the stern. I plug it in, and it works. And like I said, it's a viable option when you don't have a better option. And I think my original point before was it's good enough until you can build to the better option. You just have to be careful how you do it so that the customer, if you do it correctly, it comes through you, which means you'd have to get like a wholesale arrangement with Starlink, which I know that there are other people that talk to them about that. But getting back to the core here, we have members in all 50 states and U.S. territories. We serve a third of all connected households in the U.S. We're not going anywhere. We're gonna adapt. We'll evolve. We'll gain some yoga flexibility. You just got to do what you got to do to be responsive and respectful of your communities because we talk about all this technology, but at the end of the day, the people that live in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, or in Cedar Rapids, or in Bozeman, they know who their provider is. They sit next to them at church. They argue with them at a ball game. They throw pancakes at each other in the diner, right? Whatever it is, there's a connection there. And it's been a long-term connection. So you have to take that superpower and then apply it to these various solutions that their cousins in Minneapolis and in Miami are getting and say, look, I can do the same thing.
All right. Well, hey, great. Well, I'm sure there'll be a topic, out at the show, and another one. I don't know if this is going to be part of the discussion, but I did want to bring up the FCC's ban on new foreign-made routers, right? Because it caused a little bit of alarm, I think, in March when it first was announced, and we've seen it settle down a little bit. I mean, we've seen several products get these conditional approvals and some expedited waivers, and so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about your thoughts on that and remedies, right? Because I did see ACA Connects was part of an expedited waiver request. I don't, and who knows, it might get approved by the time people are listening to this. But yeah, maybe talk about that a little bit and what how members are thinking about this? How concerned are they right now?
Let me go first, Lou, and you can follow on. Certainly, I'd say, Jeff, you're right. It caused quite a bit of concern early on because it was kind of like
Yeah, like out of the
it
blue.
caught us. It caught everybody by surprise. Um, and it appears there are good and valid reasons for the government doing what they did, but it did send everybody scrambling for a while. We do think things are in a better place. There have been some approvals and some waivers. We went in most recently with NTCA, the telephone cooperative guys, to get our own waiver, just in the interests of making sure that everybody's got a waiver. I anticipate the FCC will grant that waiver and will do so hopefully before we do get to Orlando. Now, what's that impact been from a buying perspective? Maybe Lou, I'll toss that to you and for your
Real
thoughts.
quick though, while I have you, before Lou goes,
Yeah.
expedited waiver. What is that actually going to mean? Do you think in practice? Because the conditional approvals have been for like specific products, right? Like models and things like that that need new memory or adjust the memory and stuff like that. So do you think this will just make the process move faster? And I don't know if you've gotten much guidance yet on what that's going to give you.
Um, well, if I had my lawyers here, they could help me through the
Yeah.
accurate answer on that one. But I know. I think AT&T went in first with some
Mhm.
sort of waiver request. And then U.S. Telecom followed, and then CTA, big cable
Yeah.
followed, and we're all kind
CTIA
of.
just put something in too.
And CTIA may have just put something
Yeah.
in as well, and
Yeah.
so it's
Mhm.
it's like everybody has determined that perhaps they need a
Mhm.
waiver, and we'll pursue it. I think the storm has passed from a member perspective in terms of,
Mhm.
because if it was an outright 2-year ban, that would have had significant operational impact on every provider in the country. And
Yeah.
it looks like common sense has prevailed in Washington on this, and we'll get it all done. Now, what the hiccups are for any particular provider, or whether there are national security concerns over some of the vendors, I'm not as fluent as I should be.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all evolving, and we're kind of learning as we're going along. But I agree. Feels like all the level of concern is lowered a little bit. And Lou, I guess from NCTC side, I mean, you work with a lot of suppliers that are providing modems and routers and gateways. So, I'm guessing that ACA connects if the waiver expedited waiver is granted. I mean, that'll benefit your constituents too. But
Absolutely. Well,
yeah,
his constituents are my constituents. That's why we work so well together. Look, anytime there's a question or concern or something happening at the federal level that creates uncertainty, it impacts spending. So when all of this was going down, the biggest issue was, well, which products that we sell in our marketplace, and we have thousands of products in our online marketplace that our members access, which ones are affected and for how long, and what's around the next corner. So any of those things upsets people's desire to buy or their comfort level with placing advanced orders,
yeah,
right?
it disrupts the
Because we
status
all went
quo
through
for
that,
sure. Yeah,
build America, buy America thing, and we flushed out and identified all the products that meet that criteria, um, and and now we have this other concern, and it just makes it more challenging. There's a lot of noise that you have to cut through in order to get to people and say, no, 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 this stuff here that you're buying is good. and you can go ahead and place that order. People are being understandably reluctant to stick their necks out too far. And so it affects everybody down the line, down the food chain.
All right. Well, just a couple of quick things to wrap up. One is, Lou, you mentioned the AI Center of Excellence, right? And I imagine we'll get some updates at the Independent Show. Are you going to be presenting like some use cases that have emerged, or what can we?
Yes, we'll have a couple of panels. One will have members that were part of the pilot.
Okay.
That will talk about it, and we have probably, I think it's 3 and maybe 3 or 4 AI sessions. And yeah, we'll talk more about it. But to be honest, the pilots, they went very well. They proved out our assumptions. It was a limited time and limited exposure. So we now are working toward how do we then make that available to the masses and how that's going to work. We've got some hiring to do. We've got some organizational changes to make. That was all part of our business plan. And, we had a special board meeting week before last, I guess, where we presented our findings, and we had a unanimous vote to go forward. It's not insignificant. It's another incremental investment the co-op's going to make. And we agreed that we would revisit like a year and a half from now, because, we put together a 5-year plan. And then getting into this, we realized nobody with half a brain would tell us where AI is going to be in a year and a half, let alone 5. So we kind of built it build it in segments, so that we can be nimble and be agile. So, but we're very excited about it. I think it's going to be a significant benefit to our membership.
All right. And you mentioned broadband TV, which is kind of that entertainment focused, slimmer bundle, broadband only, or, tailored for broadband customers. Is there or anything you can say right in terms of
we're adding a bunch more channels.
More channels? Okay.
Where
are you at?
We are filling it up. You know what? I know I should know this, but I don't. But I'm going to give you an approximation. I think we started at somewhere between 35 and 40 channels. I think we're going to add at least another 15. Okay. So it's going to be a fairly robust offering. And these are brand name channels. These are not no names, but no sports, no news. That's the way it's been. So we're obviously curating a good general entertainment package that people can fold into their broadband service. And when I say people, I mean my members. Some people are selling it as an added cost. Others are just building it into a better broadband experience. That's the path I prefer, but as I've told you many times, I can't get anybody to do anything. I can only make suggestions, right?
Yeah, but they have the flexibility there.
They have lots of flexibility. There's flexibility in the platform. We're using multiple platforms now. So we started with TiVo, obviously, because they were our largest platform provider. We're going to be doing it with our other platform providers, again, showing choice. And we'll continue to curate the lineup as opportunities exist, because as you know, I mean, Judy and her team are the best that's left doing it. And I'd put them up against anybody. And so we are looking to continue to extend the life of video as a product in the new world order. Looks different, smells different, but it's still video. And we're going to do what we can to continue to preserve that.
All right. Last thing, we're always keeping an eye on what's happened, bigger picture in the industry. We're still seeing little waves of M&A, further consolidation of the operators, and I think every industry feels a certain amount of pressure. But kind of heading in, how's attendance tracking this year versus the last couple of years? Has it been pretty steady, or are you seeing some effects of kind of broader industry impacts?
So this comes with the every 3-year Disney disclosure that everybody brings somebody or in the case of John Godovin, 17 members of his family, because it's his last one. He's bringing all the kids and
Oh,
grandkids.
okay.
Attendance is great. I mean, we blew past Salt Lake probably a month and a half ago.
Hmm.
The attendance that matters, though, which is the operators themselves, not their children and grandchildren, and our vendor partners and the people who buy booths, is we're tracking exactly where we were my very first in-person independent show, which was 3 or 4 years ago at Disney. So we'll be north of 1,000 total. We have basically sold out all of our sponsorships. We still have a few booths remaining. I would say we are tracking better than average relative to what other people are seeing in their events. Some are still growing. A lot of them are scaling back a bit.
Yeah.
And I think that, the viability of the independent show continues. And, as we continue to refine this message of solutions, we're seeing more people come for the first time. And we worked really hard to create opportunities, meaning discounts, for companies that wanted to send 3 or more, or 5 or more, or 8 or more. And so, we take a look at all these analytics because it kind of tells us what the health of our industry and of our membership is. If they're, in the past, they might have sent 5 or 6 or 7 people. Now they send 2 or 3. Well, a lot of that happened because of COVID. They got through. They're like, okay, we're not going to travel as many people, or maybe their margins are under pressure. But I feel like this show will be a dramatically different experience than what we had last year in Salt Lake. Salt Lake's a beautiful place. People had a good time. But the fact of the matter, if I can say this out loud, our members do not travel west very well.
Okay.
They really prefer Midwest and East, even though we have members in the West, but not as many. So, I like to say we fish where the fish are. Right now, the fish are going to be in Disney, and they're all looking forward to coming.
All right. Same thing on the policy side, Grant, because I know there was I just scanned it, but there was I know there's like a little bit of a change going on with the summit. So,
I was debating whether to bring up the summit or not. But since you just mentioned it, I will say that we were out the other day with an announcement that we're, from my perspective, doing the smart thing and the good thing of trying to. We're not going to do the summit next year, which we historically have done in March, but we're going to do a set of 3 smaller events that are strategically placed in DC during the course of the year. I don't like all my eggs in one basket. It's become too dependent. In Washington has evolved over the last 20 years and used to be very predictable as to when they would be there and what they would be working on. And there's just way too many. My members have a good message to tell, and I want them in front of Congress to tell it. So we're gonna break it into 3 groups. I hope to have more people there collectively than I've had in the past at a single event on a single day, because sometimes people don't want to travel in March; they want to travel in June. And to me, it's going to be bigger and better than it's ever been. Talking today with Patty Boyers about it, this is like the state fair. It's better every year, and we're going to continue to evolve as Congress evolves. And I wouldn't foreclose the idea of doing summits in the future, but I think the number one job is to get in front of members. And when you put all your eggs into one trip to Washington, it's not always the smartest thing to do when the State of the Union address lands on top of you, or you get a spring blizzard. I want more opportunities to drive home just what is important, and I think we're going to have a great turnout in Disney, as Lou alluded to, and you'll hear us talk about the ACA Connects You events as part of that, and I still hope to make plenty of noise in Washington with the help of our members.
Yeah.
Think of it this way, Jeff. what Grant was just describing, just imagine if we took the Tiz to Disney and the park was closed. Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what happens when...
Well, you'd have a Griswold situation.
Right. But the point is that if Congress isn't in session and he's already got all these people coming, what do you do? I love the idea. I think it's the right thing to do. And as usual, we will be there to support them. But it is one of those conundrums that, you've got to go with what you can. And I think it's brilliant, to be honest.
Very good. So optionality, flexibility. Yeah. So excellent. Well, I know we covered a lot of ground, but I think, that's where we're going to leave it here today. And, I know there's going to be a lot to discuss there at the show. So I will look forward to heading out there and seeing you both and hopefully learning quite a bit. So thanks again for jumping on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.